Today we're looking at this Marco aluminium bench trunking by Atkore.
Reminds me of being back in a science laboratory.
What have we been experimented on, or was this during your time at school, Gary?
It was at school, and I don't think I really appreciated how close those socket outlets were to the soldering iron that I never mastered, and we've seen that in a previous video, haven't we?
We have, yeah, so it's probably best it was made out of aluminium with your wandering hands around. Yeah, right, that's probably where most people have seen bench type sockets like this mounted in trunking systems when you're at school, but great for lots of applications, obviously laboratories, schools, healthcare, in factories as well.
Yeah.
And you know, my sort of, mounting sockets onto benches, especially when they're going to move them around, can actually simplify your electrical installation.
Makes it very versatile, doesn't it? The bench moves with the power outlets on it. You've obviously only got to find the feed for that, making the process easy to flick around.
Yeah, so should we have a closer look at this system for anyone who
please.
has not had a look at the internals of one before? So it's pretty similar to obviously dado trunking, but is on an angle, so that obviously your sockets are more usable on a bench. So this is an aluminium profile, and in the middle here there is the facility to put a dividing separator, so you may have your mains cable in there, or your data cables. In another compartment, I've also seen in factories this used to run, say, compressed air lines down it if they're using air tools on assembly benches as well.
That's a good idea. Any other colours other than the aluminium?
So yeah, it's satin aluminium, or it can have a white finish to match the UPVC inserts on the front where you clip in your accessory boxes.
Okay, so that's nicely got it covered. I like the inside. I like the compressed air thing. Is that a trick that you used?
Used a few, always a few tricks out there. Yeah, it's on a bench production environment. Yeah, to try to keep minimise pipes and wires. It's a great solution. It comes in 2 metre lengths,
okay,
and you can also buy a back-to-back version that we've got here as well. So say you had 2 benches with obviously opposing sides facing each other. That's useful for there. For smaller installations, you can cut these pedestal units down.
Right,
well.
so that's a standalone unit that can be bought, is it?
Yeah, so this is an off-the-shelf unit. Obviously, it's cut down to the required length. You can have one with 2 double sockets, or single sockets, or single double socket, and again, they come in sort of single units or back-to-back variants as well.
So that's a 4-gang all the way down to 1 gang and back-to-back as variants.
Yeah.
So that's 3 gang, that's 1 gang. Right, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I think you're probably going to be screwing this one to the side of this bench because you found it very handy since you've had it, haven't you?
Yeah, it is. I can see this finding a home on the eFIXX bench. It is, again, because we often use power, we often have to use data on the bench as well. That's great. The boxes that clip in there, you can get 35mm deep and 25mm deep boxes.
And that's 35mm deep, yeah?
Yeah, and obviously your lid clips in there, so it's hidden by the accessory when it's mounted.
So when we're talking about lids, obviously there's always that, sometimes you have to join the lid together. Do they make joining pieces?
Yes, so you can get joining pieces to join 2 lengths of extrusion together, look pretty similar to the end caps. Okay. The good thing about the joining strip is obviously if you don't quite get that straight, we'll cut to that a little bit later on.
I think I'll cut to it now. Let's have a little look.
I had an attempt. So we did get, cutting this extrusion. I've used our Milwaukee bandsaw that we've used before, which will cut up to 125mm. This is a 100mm profile, so I thought, yeah, I'll have a go on that. And as a first attempt, I don't think that's that bad. You can drop a comment below on what you think. When it comes to cutting pieces, obviously when you get to corners, things get a little bit tricky. I wouldn't like to use the bandsaw on a corner.
Okay, so bring it in so
and luckily you can get internal and external angles pre-cut, obviously with a tidier mitre than you might be able to do yourself, and they're sort of solidly welded together as well. The other good thing is there is an earth point on each piece of aluminium extrusion as well.
And I'm thinking maybe I'm going to put, I don't know, 50mm between socket outlets or data points and all that. Would they give you a pre-cut of 50mm?
You can, even if you can't cut the lid yourself, there is an exact 55mm spacer to space the accessory outlets if you further want to reduce time.
We haven't got as much trunking as we had delivered because the minute it arrived, we had a purpose for it. So should we cut to the footage of when we actually installed it?
Fit this Marco bench trunking to our drill bench because we move it around all the time, so just need to shorten it a little bit. Trying to get a straight line using our Milwaukee bandsaw.
I must give you a little bit of fair dibs. You did quite a good effort cutting that straight.
First attempt on this. So we're just bringing in the cable entry at the back. So just drilled a 20mm hole through the trunking and a slightly larger hole in the bench itself to accommodate the cable gland.
So once the cable gland's in position, we can look at fastening it down onto the bench.
Yeah, so just drill a couple of mounting holes, position the trunking in place. Cut the first one of our lid sections just to get the spacing for our wiring accessories. Just going to fit 2 double sockets on here. Again, it's just like regular dado trunking. Being aluminium, obviously we've got to connect the CPC to the unit itself. They do provide a point in each one, Gary, and there is a top tip, isn't there?
There is a top tip. It's only on one of the sides, so when you made your cut, you never checked, you were in a very good position because you cut off the bit that didn't have the earth tag on. So.
Yeah, and notice the pre-made corners also have the earth point on as well.
So wiring our singles into our sockets. We said earlier that you can put data in. We didn't put data in, so we didn't use the divider for these ones. So ever so simple system. Okay, it's just a case for us really now for the trunking is actually just to finish those lids off. Yeah. When you do put the sockets on, there is a top tip, isn't there? Not to screw them down tightly because the lid does go under the sockets themselves, doesn't it?
Yes, that's it. And here we're using some conduit singles, but we're also bringing in an HO7RNF heavy-duty rubber flexible cable, and we've used this as an opportunity to test out the new MK Rapid Fix sockets here. Because you can combine different cable types in one accessory.
Yeah, that's class 1, class 2, class 5, what we got, yeah, so we're in there. So this is the tip. So when we're putting these back at this stage without the lid, don't screw them all the way back because the lid will slide just under there. So finish off the last socket outlet, exactly the same process. We've only got class 2 conductors now. So strip those off, I'm going to use the same socket outlets. I think pairing the two together makes an immensely quick system, do you agree?
Yeah, it does, yeah. So just cut those final bits of lid, and then it's a case of putting the end caps on. So the good thing about this extrusion system, the screw ports in the end, so it's just a case of putting self-tapping screws into the end cap, and then we're job done.
Yeah, and as we pan back now, you'll see, look at that, and that can be moved anywhere that we want it to go. Straightforward process. Well, what a great system. You can see there, we put it on that bench. That bench is going to move in the future, so we'll take our power with us. However, I've noticed back here one that I hadn't seen before. Is this part of the same system?
It's a relative of the bench trunking, so think of that problem you have sometimes in an open plan office, particularly if you've got a solid floor, you need to drop some power and data down in the middle of an open plan space. This is the power pole that I think we need to look at in a future video. Okay, so that'll be a separate standalone video for that one. But as always at eFIXX, we're interested in your feedback and your comments. Have you been using this trunking on a bench and you've got some great applications you want to share with the community? Please leave them in the comments below and we'll try and get back to as many as we can.